Haseeb Budhani, co-founder and CEO of Rafay Systems. Welcome to the Insight Jam.
Doug, thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Well, let's start where you are right now. What is the state of platforms as a service and really the market for infrastructure as a service at the moment in this moment?
So I would say that every enterprise is on a journey towards a true PaaS, platform as a service, inside their organizations. And the way I sort of envision everybody's journey, so I kind of see certain steps that companies take in this journey. The first step is a very basic one, which is, hey, I have some stuff working, right? It's just, I have Terraform, right? That's like step one, right? Terraform. Then they think about, wow, I got a bunch of Terraform. I got to standardize. Got to really think about what are the standards I need in my organization. And once they have standards, they start thinking really about centralization, which is a first real step in the right direction. And once they have centralization, they are able to really think about serving a large populace from a single organization. And then they can apply cost policies, et cetera, et cetera. This journey, so sort of basic stuff, basic automation to standardization to centralization, results in something that nobody cares about, which is self-service. When you get to a point where you can allow or enable developers and data scientists to press a button and get stuff, that is nirvana. Everybody's working towards that step, and this is the path they take. And as we talk to customers, usually either explicitly or implicitly, what we as salespeople are trying to figure out is, where are they in this journey? The earlier they are, the less or the more nebulous the goal is. But our job as a vendor, to plug Rafay for a second, is to help our customers in the journey so they can deliver self-service consumption with all the right guardrails so people can move fast. Everybody agrees with the goals. There is still a lot of confusion and lack of clarity in the market as to how to get there. And that's where we find ourselves today.
Well, and it's still, I would argue, a fairly nascent market, right? I mean, Kubernetes it's less than 10 years old, I believe. The platform as a service, I mean, all of cloud, really, it's my opinion that cloud took longer than it should have to become kind of mainstream, chiefly because of, I think, of an old guard that was a little resistant to adoption. But now that the younger generation is kind of moving into decision making, it seems like it's been adopted at a far higher rate. But also, we're at a point now where there's some real implications to not getting this right, and so you do have to start making some bets. So what do you say? What do you offer for guidance as people are trying to sort out their strategy around their internal systems?
Clearly there are companies out there who have, for whatever reason, decided we're going to be cloud only and not just cloud first, and many of them exist. Particularly on the large enterprise or mid to large enterprise side, right? There's always going to be applications that you have to really look at closely to understand where does it go best, or what is the right place for it to live. Some of them may indeed end up living in a data center because there is data gravity, and a large percentage of the data in the world is not yet in the cloud, right? At some point in the next 10 years, maybe, but today, no. I think that this is a story I tell a lot of people. There's a specific CIO in our customer base who I've gotten to know really well, and we met the first time we met was last summer, and he was like focused on cloud first, cloud only. I want to kill my data centers. We're done with this. I won't do this anymore. But then GPUs happened, right? And then it turned out the GPU consumption in public clouds is incredibly expensive. So now they're saying, actually, hold on, for the apps where we will be introducing Gen AI and the data happens to be not in the cloud yet, we're now going to go buy a bunch of hardware from Dell and deploy GPU hardware in a data center, right? So these things that we all as an industry are used to people making these kind of decisions, and strong opinions come about, and then the market shifts. So I would say that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was clear, right? Cloud first, cloud only for some of these companies. But today, I think it's a hybrid world now. And a big part of that is AI. Because look, I mean, this is the boring fact of our situation. Most of the data is not in the cloud right now. So as we move forward as a company, right, one of the things we're doing is like till like a year ago, our stack was all about cloud, right? All we talked about was AWS and GCP. But now we want to make sure our customers understand and appreciate that we can help them also deploy on premises, which is something we have done forever, but we sort of ignored it in our marketing, right? I mean, what you say is what is true, right? Doesn't matter what the stack does, right? So people assume that you were only a cloud company, but actually that's not true. And now we are underscoring that point because many of my larger customers who are 100% focused on AWS, for example, are now also running something in like an Equinix colo. I got to serve them both, right? So this is going on right now. I didn't think this would happen, frankly. I thought this was done, but here we are.
Well, I think AI. I think your point is a good one. AI is in such an interesting moment where, again, I think some large organizations are, to a certain degree, unsure which way to go because they understand they have real value in their data. As proprietary data, but they also understand the value of kind of the larger frontier models that are available to them. And I think they're trying to figure out what bets they want to make and how much data they want to basically let leak, if you will, and how much they want to build around their own data. And so are you seeing that? Are you seeing folks starting to build AI strategies around their own data sets and beginning to think, this is going to be a competitive advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were a little surprised by it, I would say, in terms of how the interest came about. So, I mean, us as a Kubernetes oriented company, and certainly we started off as a Kubernetes company. But maybe about 18 months ago, we saw a gap in our own portfolio, which was, okay, we solve for Kubernetes, but an app is not just Kubernetes. There's all these things that happen around Kubernetes. Who's going to orchestrate this now, right? And we started building that. The intent was, I don't want to just provide Kubernetes. I want to provide an experience. So when a developer says, give me a test bed, for example, what does that mean? How do you deliver every step or every component of a test bed, which is not just Kubernetes? It could be a database. It could be secrets management. It could be ingress controllers. It could be DNS entries. All of this comes together to make an application work. So we essentially were sort of selling two products. We were selling like an experience management product, if you will. We call it Environment Manager. And then we have a Kubernetes product, which we call very simply Kubernetes Manager. Simple of it. We had a customer who, unbeknownst to us, was trying to sort of contort these two products into a use case that we'd never thought about. And the use case was that they had hardware, GPU hardware in a data center, and they were trying to use our stack to make that server or set of servers a multi-tenant set of servers so that multiple people could share them and they couldn't figure it out. So beforehand, the seems like the model was, here's a server, it's got 8 GPUs, I guess it's yours now, right? But now I don't need 8 GPUs, I need like a seventh of this GPU. But then, well, sorry, we don't have a way to do it. Please give it back in a day. This is a very bad model for platform engineering. So they were trying to use our product to solve that problem, and we saw that and was like, oh, this is interesting. What is missing? And it turned out that what was missing was we call it an inventory management layer. So between our environment stuff, like the experience stuff and the Kubernetes stuff, if we wrote like a bin packing layer, if you will, right? Hey, you have, let's say 10 DGX servers, which means you have 8 A100s. But really what that means is if you virtualize the GPU, you don't have 8 times 10, 80. It actually is 8 times 10 times 7 because you can have 7 slices in the GPU. Oh, on top of that, you can allocate one slice to one user. And then on top of that, you can give them a Jupyter notebook. That's pretty cool. So we built that. So we built that for this one customer. And this is our style here, right? So we obsess over these specific use cases. So we meet one customer. We always need a crazy guy, right? To help us sort of find a path, right? Because sometimes we don't know, right? One crazy guy is going to change the destiny of this company every time, right? It happens a lot for us, but we find some very smart, crazy people, right? And they tell us, look, here's where I'm going and here's how I'm seeing other people going. So long as we have confidence that there's a bunch of other crazy people just like this guy. We go and we built it. So now we are able to address an on-prem GPU PaaS problem, which is basically foundationally tied to our core product. So because we were doing kind of fun things with experience management, and then we let our really out there customers try crazy things, right? And we were with them in this experiment, right? We didn't ever say, oh, I don't know about this, we don't want to do this, or let me talk to product management and prioritization. No, this is a great experiment. We are your partner, we're here to help you. And we did. And you know what happened? Every single financial service customer in our customer base has the same exact issue.
Well, this is interesting because this is, I think, part of the problem in this inflection point is that companies are unsure where they should be headed. And I think a lot of companies are waiting around for all these funded startups to come along and bring them tools that will point them in the right direction. But really where you're at is more foundational than that. And so do you see your business shifting as you start to chase the AI opportunity and more of a hybrid or even a private cloud opportunity?
So look, our board is asking us this question, right? What does this mean to the company? A year from now, what are you going to be selling, right? It's a very fair question. So here's how I answer the question to them. So the meta trend here, if you step back from the technology, is that in these larger enterprises, AI, or in some fashion, AI was happening prior to Gen AI. They didn't just wake up and start doing Gen AI. They were doing some MLOps before. But the difference was that there was a separate MLOps organization, separate from the CTO or cloud engineering organization. That was a different animal. And that's not the case anymore. So my customer is now inheriting the MLOps function because it's the same infrastructure. It's all Kubernetes based, right? And people like the CIO is asking, why do I have two teams? You already do Kubernetes, right? Take it from here. And now our customer is saying, well, what's my path forward, right? So we are basically going to the same customer you had for a long time to whom we sell cloud native adoption technology and say, you have a second door now, which is the AI ML adoption technology requirement. So we're going to give you two doors. You're already walking down one door. Let's now do this as well. And if you do both of them with Rafay, your foundation is exactly the same, which means your team is exactly the same. See, we are plumbers, right? I'm not here to give you a model, right? I can help you set up the registry for the model. That's infrastructure. But is it Llama 2 or Llama 3? Look, at some level, 70 billion or 7 billion or 7 trillion, it's not my problem. Right? I'm talking about that's the customer's going to make a decision. But we are here to help you standardize your infrastructure so that whether the end user is writing Java code or building a code pilot, the experience is exactly the same and standardized and repeatable so that there's less churn, so that they write code faster, which means the company makes more money. This is a story that my customer wants to hear.
And do they also want that full open source story as well? The Kubernetes to Llama,
absolutely
full open source.
100%, right? So one of the, like as an example, some of the tools that we have standardized now over the last 6-ish months in our platform, right? So a lot of our customers care about Kubeflow, which is a very elegant pipeline mechanism. It's just very complicated, right? It's incredibly hard to use, but well, that's our job, right? We've taken Kubeflow and we made it a true service. So you don't have to think about how does Kserve tie into, Feast, and I got it. Don't worry about it. We've done the same for KubeRay. So Ray is a pretty cool technology, my definition, so like a task-based AI model. So you can kind of give it jobs to do and it's going to run them for you. Beautiful. But there's a version called KubeRay, which is a lot of people using that. So we standardize on KubeRay as another option. And we have a notebook as a service in our product. So what we're doing is we're looking at the stack and going, what are the infrastructure pieces and here's the litmus test. What should my customer own? Whatever my customer needs to own becomes my job, because our job is to make them successful, right? That's the line, right? Anything above the line, which is data science, there's going to be a bunch of companies to solve that problem. Like, we've seen now a lot of the larger accounts working with like Accenture on AI tooling. So great, let us Accenture do that. The infrastructure, we got. And look, the key thing for Rafay is it's the same customer. They now have an additional job. The old job doesn't go away. I still have to run my apps, yeah? Because it's not like all apps are 100% GPU, right? There's all these like apps are apps, right? I still need to run a web front end. I still need to run a back end. And yes, I may have a Copilot as well, right? So now it's a conglomerate of different technologies. So the cloud native stack and the AI/ML infrastructure stack, both are needed, and it's the same buyer. And that gives Rafay an opportunity because I can now selfishly make more money from the same account. And they're happy because the same team size, they win also.
So where is the data center headed? I mean, I know that there was a shift, and I think there right now is kind of almost an arms race to build some of the largest, massive GPU data centers that have ever existed, that are threatening, literally threatening, the energy infrastructure in certain areas of the country. But do you see, what I'm hearing is there might be this interesting kind of smaller, high-powered proprietary data centers for some of these organizations where they kind of retool completely at that level?
I have visited a data center company in the last 2 months in the US where they have gone all into NVIDIA gear. But because of the power requirements being very different, they, in this large facility, had 6 racks, I think, or maybe 8 racks. And the rest of the facility was basically empty.
And there's a lot of those that exist right now.
And
we move into very cheaply.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about let's get some paddle boards, and I guess we can open up a court here, right? And because there's so much space. So yeah, I mean, the world is different going forward. Because people will continue to
with that rack, with that smaller footprint, though, the energy required to power that
it's the same as the whole data center.
Is the entire data center.
They take all the power. Yeah, because that's the issue, right? So you have to really rethink, like cooling is different now, right? So like NVIDIA seems to have standardized on sort of liquid cooling, I guess, right? So there's a lot of things that have changed now in our industry, right? You don't kind of do like, aisle to aisle, right? Like kind of front and back aisles for cooling, and all that stuff is very different now. I'm sure the larger companies in the space, the Equinixes of the world, are thinking about like how do they have to retool their existing real estate to meet this need. But this is not happening in a vacuum, right? So like I would say 6 months ago, I was worried, is this just crazy times when people are spending money with no end in sight? Or what is going on here? No, people are building apps. I mean, that's the fun part. This doesn't seem like it's all empty, right? People are building real apps. Now, is everybody in the world doing inferencing today? No, right? But for that matter, is everybody in the world doing training today? No, right? There's very few companies who are going to end up building a real model, right? Most people will take some model and then tune it for their purposes or rack it for their purposes, but all this requires GPU infrastructure. So and you asked the question early on, which is about data. I think this is the critical thing, right? Data gravity is the most important thing. Like companies like Dell have been talking about it, and in the cloud world, I guess at some level, we didn't care, right? Because we just used Snowflake and Databricks and just shoved all of our data into the cloud. But it's not all right now, right? It's at least people argue that maybe 70+% of the data still lives outside of the cloud. Yeah, I mean, it's going to stay there for a while, right? There's significant gravity, which means compute is going to get attracted towards where the data is, which means this GPU infrastructure is going to end up getting built where the data is, which means now you have, more mass outside of clouds. I think this becomes like the pivotal moment last year was that the world is not going to be 100% cloud anymore. Last year, we all became hybrid companies. That is done now, at least for the next 5 to 10 years. We will see then after that, right? But we are now all hybrid. Everybody's going to have to rethink their strategy. There's no such thing as, we are 100% Amazon. Finished. At least for enterprises. Small companies, yeah. Whatever.
Because of cost, is it chiefly?
So cost is a big driver. I think data is a bigger driver. Eventually, costs come down for everything, right? Right now, we have supply chain issues. So costs are high for GPUs in the cloud, unless you commit for like 2 or 3 years. I think it's a data issue. The data isn't in the cloud. It's not in the cloud right now. It is sitting in factories and whatnot.
So let's talk about data. So give me your take on data strategy here. My take is that the dirty secret in most organizations is the state of their data, and that they and I you've seen some of this stuff at the in the kind of behind the curtain view. What is your sense with regard to the state of data within large organizations? Is because I know none of this stuff is going to work without the data being at its most pristine, and yet I suspect that there's still a long way to go for a lot of organizations with regard to the state of their data. What's your take on that?
For sure, right? That problem existed well before the advent of Gen AI, right? I mean, even when you look at like same companies like Splunk, right? A lot of the data that they help you bring together in some whatever Splunk out or even your own hardware. I mean, the question is how much of that data is how much of the data is ever accessed ever again, right? And I don't know the numbers, but I would wager 80% is never looked at ever again, right? Because that's just how it is. I think the critical thing there is that with Gen AI tooling, there is an opportunity like never before to actually process the data that you had that you couldn't actually process before, right? The idea of sort of tagging data and cleaning it up and all this, like these are very expensive exercises before that now probably become a lot cheaper going forward because of the tools that exist now that did not exist before, right? There's enough sort of, companies focus on that, right? There's a slew of companies on the data side trying to solve that problem. So my suspicion is that much of the data that we have basically not referenced for a while is going to become interesting again. I think that we're going to go through that cycle. And I think many companies will find that much of the data that they could not access before, not they didn't want to, they couldn't, actually delivers a lot of value that they have missed, right? And I think that will happen. I'm pretty confident. I mean, I'm speaking, what I just said is a function of 4 very specific conversations with customers who are trying to rethink their data strategy. And the reason why Rafay is in that conversation is not, we're not a data company, but the processing of the data with the vendors they're working with also happens on Kubernetes. So they're trying to figure out wherever my data is, I need a spigot, which is going to be a compute spigot, and I need Kubernetes there. And hey, Rafay, can you help me with that? So there's a bunch of these use cases that are popping up now that, dude, I like, we never thought about this stuff, right? Like we were just focused on the very, at this point now, boring use case, right? Oh, I have Amazon EKS and I need to manage it better. Okay, all right. I mean, there's money to be made there, right? It's good money, but it's so boring, right? But now there's all these fascinating use cases that are coming about that we did not even know existed 6 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah. Let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about how organizations take advantage of this moment in time. So again, my sense is that a lot of organizations are being encouraged at the board level on down to go get all the efficiencies that are available to them now through AI. And there's got to be a way to make some drastic changes and get on that and start to find those. And the rub is that most of these very advanced, sophisticated, mature, large organizations have incredibly smart people who have built incredibly sophisticated systems, have been grinding out efficiencies for years now. And I think there is very little meat on the bone for them to get efficiencies without, and we'll get there, without real radical, you know where I'm headed with that, but talk a little bit about that. I mean, the organizations you're working with, these are not fat, sloppy. I mean, I've seen the logos on your corporate page, and it's like these are not companies that are kind of, that have, in my mind anyway, a lot of obvious automation opportunities. But maybe I'm missing that.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, yeah, I don't think a Bolshevik revolution is needed, right, to kind of really make changes here. The humans get used to any situation they're in, right? Everything becomes normal, right, and normalized. I think that, like, at the beginning of this conversation, I described a journey which was sort of basic automation to standardization to centralization to self-service. The following will probably surprise you. Most enterprises are in the first step, basic automation. They don't even have standardization. I'll give you one example. I won't name the company, but this use case applies to many companies. And you'll hear it, and I know what your response will be, or reaction will be. Many large financial service customers, they took an automation route, and they found that it was actually complicated. It's difficult. They didn't have the people. So here's what they did. They wrote a bunch of Terraform, but they didn't want to run it because they didn't have the people to run it on behalf of everybody else. You know what they did? They took the Terraform and they gave it to the developers. That's already sounding pretty bad, right? But yeah, this is something that a bunch of large enterprises have done. And then they said, hey, if you need any help, file a ticket, we'll come help you. So as a result of that, and this is now, I'm not talking about one company. This is many, many companies. And no, offline, I can tell you maybe who they are. The development team said, this is ridiculous. So they started building small teams to do DevOps inside the developer organization. So now the development team has 20, 30% of their bandwidth for DevOps. And there's a central team. This situation is common. The right answer, obviously, is not this. This is a terrible plan, because now what you have is 50 different variations of whatever the hell you wrote in the first place. Where's the standards? Actually, there are no standards. This is a crazy plan. So what we are telling those companies is, no, don't do that. Let's undo those DevOps teams within the developer organization. You do this centrally, and we're going to give you a force multiplier where you can do everything. You run this as a PaaS, not as a, hey, I wrote a bunch of code. It's on Jira now. Good luck. Or Confluence. That's what people do, right? So there's a lot of them like this. And I gave you obviously a crazy example to make a point, right? That we're, as an industry, we're not as mature as we think. So there's a lot of opportunity to make things go faster and be more efficient. But I mean, we have a slide that we maintain which has 20 use cases, and it's supposed to be a very busy slide to make the case that these are the crazy things people do in their companies that they shouldn't. Give another example. Many financial services companies have to update the AMI in their environments on a monthly basis. Some regulation that requires them to do it. There are teams within most FinServ companies that do this on a monthly basis. So they're on a 3 to 4 week cycle, and I guess they take a day off, and then they do it again, and then they do it again, and then they do it again. That's a crazy plan. In our product, if you want to update AMIs, you press a button, and about an hour and a half later, your 10,000 clusters would be updated, or whatever number you have, 100. So what do you do for the rest of the month? Not much. There are incredible opportunities to automate, my friend.
Well,
right? So this is what this is our business.
Let's go down that path. Yeah. So let's pull out one degree further and talk a little bit about the moment in time and this technological revolution that's about to land. So inevitably, you can see where this is going. I mean, we've seen the internet, we've seen the cloud, we've seen mobile, but this is none of that. This is inevitably going to be a far greater impact, and it's going to have a far greater impact, I would argue, not at the infrastructure level, but at the human resources level. And in the end, that's where the board is going to end up in terms of pushing down on the management team. When they ask for efficiencies, they're going to end up at cost centers, and those cost centers are going to be headcount. I mean, where do you see this headed? I mean, how do you see it beginning to play out? And then how do you see it? I mean, I worry about this a lot because I have 2 kids who've just gone off into the private sector. They're in their 20s. They're going to be dealing with this for the next 30 years. You know, where does this start to have an impact on real people?
So 2 weeks ago, I was in Bangalore, meeting with the team. We have a bunch of team members in Bangalore, 100 people there. I did a bunch of sort of team meetings, and in only one meeting did I make the following, which was when it comes to sort of building QA automation cases, it's all going to get automated, right? This function is going to change. Function is going to go away. So if you're sitting there writing automation tasks, right? I mean, this is going to just don't do this. So then the question is, okay, what do we do now? We don't have jobs? No. The thinking doesn't go away. The thinking through the scenarios doesn't go away. The building of the test cases is going to get automated. There'll be tools for that. There are already tools that are trying to do that anyway, and they'll get better. But the thinking doesn't go away, right? The future is, like we used to call it knowledge workers. I don't know what the right word is, but it's actually, now it's got to be a word of thinkers, right? We gotta, like, somebody's got to envision all these things, and then some tool can implement it, right? I can explain to the tool, hey, I'm thinking about this and this and this, and do it. I think that's a big transition here. The thinking doesn't go away, and that's what we have to make sure, the younger generation understands and appreciates, right? If you're doing the same thing, like if you're a radiologist, right? Today, radiologists make a lot of money. Setting aside, I'm an engineer, so I'm not using my own example. Yeah, man, what is the purpose of a radiologist in the future? Like, what, you're gonna eyeball that white spot on an X-ray or whatever? No, I mean, the system will do that significantly better than you. Don't do that. But the thinking, right? The patterns that somebody taught that system came from somebody's mind. It's a thinking economy going. I don't know. That's what I tell my kids also. I have 2 kids as well, a little bit younger in their 20s. And that's what I'm making sure they do. Like, be good at math, man. Like, do history. Like, really. Really understand, 500 years ago, the world used to look this way. And now it looks this way. Don't just get your history from TikTok. Really, really understand these things, right? Hey, let's make sure when you go to college, God willing, soon, you take some philosophy classes, man. Just make sure you do that. I think this is where we have to invest with our children, so that they're protected from what's coming, which is efficiencies. Anything that is repeatable is gone.
It's fascinating because solutions review is in the content creation business, and ultimately our content creation up until a couple of years ago was primarily words on screen. And once generative AI landed, we had an existential meeting and realized, that business model is gone. The idea of writing content to optimize against SEO, to get organic search, that's not going to be around for very long. And so we've migrated to conversations like this, human one-to-one conversations and multimedia and presenting information in a different paradigm than what we'd traditionally done. And I think, the fact of the matter is that generative AI at first swath wipes out writers. I thought it was funny. I was talking to my daughter, who's a freshman in college, about ChatGPT and generative AI and what the school's policy guidance was around that. And she says, we're banned from using it. And I thought to myself, well, how is that going to scale exactly? Like, how do colleges plan to thread that needle forever? I mean, it's impossible. The idea, first of all, that students aren't going to use it is naive at best. But second, the idea that mid-career college professors or whatever teaching assistants are going to be able to even determine, it's almost like you have to grade papers based upon how badly they're written in order to determine that it was written by a human.
No, there are tools now, right? So, like, our kids, they go to school where they have a tool that they have to run their code, anything that they write, they have to run it through it. So it's gonna look for plagiarism, which used to be a thing before. Now there's ChatGPT, right? So now it's gonna say, this is, this write-up is the chances that it was written by ChatGPT are 90% or 80% or 50%, and the goal is you want that number to. I think their number is 60%. It has to be. That system has to say it's less than 60%, or you have to rewrite it. But now the kids have gotten smart enough.
We all know that there's another tool being written right now by somebody.
Of course. This is all silly stuff, right? Now,
it's like a ping pong match.
Yeah, this is what administrators do, right? This is the issue with bureaucracy, right? They just, because they can't deal with any massive shifts, their only solution is ban it. right? That's what just all bureaucrats do, right? Just ban stuff, right? This is silly stuff. It's going to work itself out, right? The reality is that our world is going to look as follows, in my opinion. All of us will have our own agents who will understand us, and they will understand our lives and how we think and how we speak. And when we say something, they're gonna help us, right? If I want to, for example, count how many times I said thank you today, it's a fun exercise I do sometimes. Okay, I can tell my agent, hey, can you just make sure you count all the thank yous I say today? And it understands what I meant. It's going to count it. At the end of the day, it's going to say, you said it 73 times, right? But now if you think about the implementation for that, because we're all engineers, well, that's a pretty hard problem to solve, actually, right? Really understanding me and, et cetera. And I speak very fast. English is not my first language. Lots of challenges. This is where the world is headed. Doesn't matter what these administrators believe. The question is not how it's going to look. The question is, what does the economy look like around us in that future? What are people doing? And then, of course, I got to think micro because I'm the CEO of a company. What does it mean for my company, right? How are we enabling people to do the things that they would do? Either you're part of it or you're not, right? And we all want to be part of it. You made a great decision, sounds like, as an organization. Hey, look, just content writing is not going to pay the bills because now Grammarly can also SEO tune your content, by the way. You can pay Grammarly more money and they will just SEO optimize your content for you. Done, free. There's no people needed anymore. Then what is the point of these SEO optimization companies? They're all done. So what do we do in the future? You've taken a good path, which is real valuable conversations where we talk about, well, real problems, right? Thinking economy. Again, these are terrible words. I'm usually not known for the guy to come up with labels, but yes, there will be a thinking economy in the future, and I hope both you and I are the thinkers in that economy.
So I mean, how do you see it playing out in practical terms? I mean, there are roles and again, I always say capitalism is undefeated in terms of grinding out efficiencies regardless of your feelings. So there are roles and roles, quite frankly, that people went to school for, like coding, for instance, that is just simply people are not going to be competitive against the tool sets. And regardless of your thinking, you're only going to need so many architects. And the other, I think, fascinating thing is that the traditional ladder that you would rise up as a software developer, coder, won't exist anymore. There won't be any, but the bottom rungs are going to be automated away. And the question is how do you grow a team when there's no grunt work, if you will, anymore?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's not clear to me, so my son is 12 and we've had him kind of taking program classes for the last couple of years. And he was talking about this over the summer. What is the point of this, right? Because he's now gotten used to GitHub Copilot. So okay, this is pretty cool, right? I mean, what is the point of this? And I keep telling him, look, the intent with this is so he's reasonably good at so I chose this for no good reason, but Python and C++, right? If you can learn Python and if you can really understand some object-oriented programming language, you'll be fine, right? You can figure out other languages in due course if you need to, right? Because languages are not the issue. So, and he's not bad actually, but he was asking that question. Hey, Copilot just auto completes everything for me. So why am I learning anything? But it's auto completing. It's not yet at a point where you describe an idea and it writes the code for you automatically. At some point, will it get there? Maybe. But till that happens, you're still thinking about stuff, right? You have to decide, how efficiently you're going to sort a list, for example. This was a project he was working on last weekend, right? So, so he wrote in brute force, and then we spent time talking through, well, how do you make it better? Okay, that's fun, right? So now I'm sure somebody will write something which is going to find the most efficient way to sort, a list. But the fact that he has to think about it is important, right? We got to understand these systems, right? We can't, the fact that people say, well, Jenny, I made a decision, but we don't exactly know why. Right? So that's kind of scary, right? I think our children have to understand these systems so that they can operate these systems. That doesn't mean they have to build these systems. And yes, sure, maybe the bottom rungs sort of disappear because the senior people can do a lot more work now efficiently because they have things like Copilot. But that doesn't, how is that any different Like since the dawn of the industrial revolution, right? People have been arguing about this. Oh, this job is gone and that job is gone. Oh, the printing press is bad because now writers who write by hand don't have jobs. Whatever. This is how it is, right? Like you
But
describe capitalism. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah. But you appreciate that this is a
We'll see, right? See, I think
several
we as
magnitudes
humans
different. I mean, it's digital.
I hope
It scales infinitely in theory. It's not
maybe,
like you have to wait around for a printing press to be built and delivered. And
but relative to where people were before, where they were writing books by hand and then they could print it. So writing by hand would take a couple of years, printing would take a day, right? That was infinitely faster. See, I guess the meta point I'm making is we as humans always believe we are in the most interesting times and the worst times ever at the same time. That's just how we are. It's the worst time and the best time at the same time for humans at any time, right? So yes, this is a pretty interesting move, but what I'm saying is this has happened before and this will happen again. And we have survived before and we'll survive tomorrow. We just found different ways to look.
I would argue against that. I mean, this has never happened before. We haven't built systems that are designed to replicate how humans think. A neural network is not a printing press. This is not going from analog to digital in the 80s. This is not going online from offline to online in the 90s, or this isn't going from, on-prem to the cloud. I can build something that basically it never calls in sick. It never looks for another job. It never goes on vacation, and it never asks for a raise. More to the point, I only have to pay $20 a month, and I get as many of them as I want until I have all the ones that I need. I mean, this is a whole different animal. The idea of agents and digital assistants.
Totally. Look, in my opinion, the dystopian view of this is this notion of, so I believe the idea of, this may sound completely heretical, but this idea of universal basic income that people talk about, right? This is a whole different topic, but
I keep going down that path.
Yes,
I hear you.
Yes. So I think that I find UBI to be a dystopian concept, not like a utopian concept, actually. I think that we are humans, as humans are designed to work, right? We thrive on solving problems. We thrive on hard work, right? I mean, how many people, I'm sure people who did retire and then something bad happens to their health, right? This guy retired. Oh my God, he just retired and he got Alzheimer's. I think it's not that he retired too late. I think there's a correlation. When we tell our brains we're done that in this life, yeah, your brain says, okay, I guess I'm done. Let's go die now, right? We all need a purpose, and we will find a purpose. We are animals of purpose. When this world changes yet again, we will find another purpose. That's just how it is. I am bullish on humans.
I'm genuinely concerned about humans, because once you realize that you're not competitive, nothing you do, even though you have 20 years of experience, it's similar to, being an author or one of our editors at Solutions Review. You can't write as well as ChatGPT. You just can't. You can't access the information that a large language model can. And this is, I consider this. We're at the the Netscape Navigator version of the browser. I mean, we're early on. We're not.
Yep.
And we're already not competitive in terms of speed, in terms of access to information, and being able to make references to that information. I mean, it blew me away the first time I saw ChatGPT. It stoned me how that will obliterate what we were doing. I mean, and it's going to. And more to the point, the thing that bothers me the most is that it can make anybody. It used to be the rule was Malcolm Gladwell's rule, right? You needed 10,000 hours to be an expert, and if you had 10,000 hours, you could be an expert or whatever. But now anybody can present themselves as an expert by just putting their name at the top of a piece of content that was created by a generative AI system.
So what you're describing is essentially a frontal attack on certainly content creation and beautiful content creation. I think that the prompt that was given to ChatGPT to write the thing that it wrote for you is maybe where the value is in the future, right? Look, we're gonna find these paths forward, right? That just like I may sound maybe I'm romanticizing it a little bit, but man, people have gone through a lot of crazy things over the last 10,000 years, man. I wonder how many times the population of this world has come to the brink of people just going away, and then now we're like 7+ billion people. We're just a parasite. We don't go away. That just other than this, some hand of God, right? We are a parasite, my friend. We will.
I'm not saying the people go away. I'm just saying that they're going to be very depressed when they realize that they can't earn a living. And honestly, the UBI idea. I mean, again, they're going to be. I say this a lot too, that the titans of this revolution are still in high school.
That is true.
Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates of the PC revolution, the Bezos and Zuckerbergs of the internet revolution. The AI revolution's titans aren't even here yet. And the money that they're going to create, the wealth that they're going to create is going to be exponentially larger than even what we've seen with these titans of the past.
That is absolutely true. So that I completely agree with. But look, I mean, your point is a really, really important one. And I mean, my only sort of thought on that is, I continue to believe that things are never as awesome as we think, and they're never as dire as we think, right? COVID is the best example of that, actually, right? We're all gonna die, and we're here, right? So I think it's gonna be fine. I think that humans are incredibly good at finding ways around it, which is why, look, I mean, I'll give you a completely different example. And my friend, we are so off topic. I hope it's okay. I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way.
No, we're not off topic at all.
Yeah, well, then it's good. I'm good to happy to hear that. Like this whole idea of like climate change, right? So obviously climate is changing. Like where we live, it used to be a very different climate not too long ago. I live in the Bay Area in California. It is very different now. It's so much hotter than it used to be. But the thing is, I think that humans are just crazy inventors, right? They're gonna find ways, right? Like globally now. So I grew up in a country called Pakistan. The small companies that I know there who are looking at desal projects because there's no water, but there's a lot of ocean water. The Arabian Sea is right there, but there's no water coming into the city. So the desal work that is happening, right? People are innovative. Humans are crazy inventors. They will find some crazy way, and we'll all be amazed, right? It's just that, unfortunately, it just needs to but we're also lazy, right? So it has to get to some really dire point where people go, "Oh shit, I got to fix this now." And then some crazy guy comes along and fixes it. I have incredible faith that those kinds of things will continue to happen for the next million years. That will be fine. And ChatGPT is not one of the things.
So tell us a little bit about your path as now an IT leader. I mean, if we were to give some advice out to the human race in terms of how to thrive in a technological revolution, what were some of the decisions along the way? I mean, can you point to a couple of things that you made, decisions along that you believe changed the course of your life?
Oh yeah, very clearly I can. And just to be clear, if my wife ends up listening to this, we're only talking about the professional career and not the personal life. Obviously, the best decision I made was I married my wife, but I worked at startups, right, very simply. So I went to USC for undergrad, to Cal for grad school. During undergrad, I didn't have a lot of money, so I used to go work. I mean, I would take some job somewhere. And by junior year, I guess I hadn't taken enough interesting courses where like a company could give me a job to write code. So I worked at Ericsson, I worked at Cisco, didn't really enjoy it. And then I heard about this, I've told the story 1,000 times, that I heard about this small company in Torrance, which is near LA, where some company was hiring coders at $25 an hour. And that was enough information. I don't know what you're writing. I don't really care. It's $25. This is like 99. So yeah, man, I won that job. And they were writing code for shopping carts, like web shopping carts.
Sure.
I don't know what that concept is, but they were writing code. That was a lot of fun. These crazy people work all the time, you know, they just wrote code and it's like, okay, I want to do that. Right. So then when I graduated, I only applied to small companies. And I've only ever applied to small companies actually for jobs. I'm at a different point in my life now, right? You know, if I were to, by the grace of God, I've been working on startups, so I've not had to apply for a job for some time. But were I to apply for a job now, perhaps I'd go work at a large company because maybe I can, it'd be kind of fun to work in a larger scale. But in my 20s, yeah, man, startups. And so anytime I talk to somebody who's about to graduate, I tell them, if you have the opportunity, go work at a startup. What do you got to lose? What's the worst that could happen? You have to go look for another job. So what? It's fine. Go learn, right? And that, had I not done that, I'd be probably in a different place, right?
So how do you think about the culture within Rafay? How are you? How are you guys hybrid, remote? What is the
hybrid? So in India, people prefer to go to the office. So we have a handful of, or not a handful, we have, at any one time, about 40 people in the office is how we've structured it. So then different teams come in on different days of the week because there's no reason to have like peak capacity available. What is the point, right? It's a waste of money. In the US, we are remote. We do have an office in the Bay Area, but nobody goes there. But we have one when people visit, etc. They can hang out. I go there. I'm the only one there, I guess. But we are, for the most part, sort of a combination of remote and hybrid. I spend a lot of time with the teams, right? So I do lots and lots of team level one-on-ones, or I should say one-on-one, but team level meetings. I don't like doing one-on-one meetings with my direct reports because I talk to them all the time anyway. So, hey Doug, how you doing? How you feeling? Is not if you're the leader on the team, that's there's no point in talking about that. Let's talk about problems. So let's talk about issue-based meetings versus, how are you doing? Right? I know how you're doing. We talk 5 times a day, which is different. And exec coaches would give me feedback that maybe don't do that, but that's what I do. It's efficient. I find that when we have top team meetings that are focused on a specific topic, this specific issue in go-to-market or that specific customer, what we're going to do about them versus let's have an open conversation. I find that they go better. So that's what I do a lot. Yesterday, I was interviewing a lady for a job here, and I told her, she asked me something similar, and I said, look, I'm not a yeller. I don't like yellers. I don't like people who sort of strut around. I don't like people who are rude to their team members. I don't like people who think that to get their point across, they have to be loud. It just like there are people in this company who've been with me for, I don't know, man, like 14, 15 years, some of them, right? Across companies, we've all kind of worked together in multiple shops, right? There's a level of trust and respect that is in place, right? You have to be polite. Even if you disagree, it's fine, but got to do it the right way, right? These are things that matter. They really matter. Like people, of course, they want to get good salaries, but man, they spend 10, 12 hours doing this on a daily basis, one way or another, right? I work very, very long hours, right? My day yesterday ended at 1 a.m. It is what it is, right? So and not just mine, there are people with me, right? I'm not the only one in the meeting. Right? People are working hard, right? We have to remember that. Mistakes happen. It's okay. It's fine. So long as there's a path forward. I make a lot of mistakes. It's completely okay. And I go back and tell them I was wrong about that, or I changed my mind on that. I use those words for a reason, because I want people to understand that it's okay. And I hope people agree that it's a reasonably good culture. I'm working very hard on it.
Are there types of people that you are trying to find? I mean, is there a particular question that you can ask that kind of unearths certain characteristics that you think are important? I mean, how do you think about characteristics of employees? I mean, personally, I always think that it's not so much the competence, but the characteristic of conscientiousness for me that kind of is that if you just are kind of born to go above and beyond and are very conscientious, that you'll sort the rest of it. It'll sort the rest of it out, I guess, as opposed to being incredibly talented, but a little erratic with regard to deliverables. I don't know how do you think about it?
So similar idea. I'll use different words. So there are two things that I think about a lot. One is when people report on their team, for example, in various meetings, right? What I listen for is, do they say a lot of I's or do they say a lot of E's? And here's the thing that always bothers me. So I don't ever do this, right? So I said to you when I talk about people who work around me, I said my direct reports, right? I didn't say people who work for me, because they don't work for me. They work for the company. I work for the company. It just so happens that there's a reporting structure. So when managers talk like that guy who works for me, or, et cetera, or my guy, et cetera, right? I mean, it just bothers me. It really bothers me when people talk like that, because when people talk like that, they behave like that also, whether they know it or not, they behave like that. And then they usually are bad managers, actually, right? There's there's a cliche about this, right? The leader versus the manager, right? But it's a cliche based on a lot of truth, right? They're the ones sitting in the back, take all the credit, and then, it was his fault, right? No, man, don't do that, right? So it comes out very clearly. Like individual contributors, it's hard to tell. Individual contributors have a function, and there are smarter people who will test them on that function. Who am I going to test on coding anymore other than maybe my son, right? These guys are like, I can't even track what they're working on anymore. But the managers, the frontline managers, the director VP types, right? That's where culture is built for the most part. These are the ones who destroy culture, I should say, if they're not the right people. And I really, really look for that. And I hope I make good decisions. I don't know. I hope I do. But that's something that is top of mind every time I meet somebody who's interviewing with us.
I think that's a really interesting nuance, the way that they refer to their team or people that they work with, or even their own work, is that kind of case with regard to the I or the me. I'm going to pay attention to that one. This is great. Well, Haseeb, very much appreciate the time today. This was a little far-ranging in terms of the conversation. I hope you didn't mind where we went with it, but it's always a good time to catch up with somebody who's really in the middle of the mix here and is pushing the envelope with regard to where the technology is all going. So thanks very much for the time today, and best of luck with Rafay and everything that you're working on.
Thank you very much. I can decidedly say that I've never had a conversation around UBI on a podcast before. So that was a first for me. Now, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to having many more.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today.